Thank you. I needed that. When I look at all of the great legends of our faith, these are people that went beyond self-help and pursued self-sacrifice. You know, at some point when you meet Jesus at the cross, inevitably you'll find your place upon it. And if you look at some of the greats in our faith throughout history, these people that changed lives, the Billy Grahams, the Oral Roberts, the Mother Teresas, the Corrie ten Booms, the Reinhard Bunkies, the Wendell Smiths, soon to be many people in this room, not soon to be, but hopefully a long time from now will be some of those in this room that were great legends of their faith. They always lived a life that was about others and not about themselves. If you live a life for yourself, you might have a great autobiography, but you'll never live a phenomenal legacy. And so as I think of some of the stories that I could tell to give examples of what this could look like, you know, this week I was listening to a podcast and I was reminded of a story about a guy named Joseph Damien. Joseph Damien was a Belgian minister who lived in the late 1800s, and during his period of life, he eventually moved over to the islands of Hawaii. For those of you who don't know, in the late 1800s, Hawaii, where I'm from, Maui no Kauai, that means Maui's the best, little represent, island style. That was for the one local in this place. Hopefully somebody from Hawaii, maybe you've been there. You got a t-shirt that says hang loose. Anything, it's okay to laugh, just a little refresher, taking a break from all of the, you know, heavy message. And so anyways, during this time in the 1800s, there was a lot of ships that were coming in and out of the kingdom of Hawaii, and, you know, sellers and exports and imports that were bringing in goods and taking back goods from Hawaii. And during that time, a lot of diseases that Hawaii didn't have, you know, got introduced into the islands, syphilis, other life-ending diseases, and one of the worst that plagued Hawaii was leprosy. And during that time, the king of Hawaii decided that he was going to exile all of the leopards on all of the islands and send them to the backside of the island of Molokai. Not knowing that 95% of humans are actually immune to leprosy, but they thought it was viciously contagious, so they snatched them from their homes, they ripped them away from their families, they took them off of their land, they took them away from their jobs, and not willingly, they were forced to go live on the backside of an island. There wasn't development, there wasn't roads, there wasn't buildings for them to live in. They basically drove them there or flew them there, canoed them there. They didn't even have planes back then, and just dropped them off. And they created this leper colony in the backside of the island of Molokai, and people saw a need to reach these leopards, so there was only 4 ministers that even volunteered to actually go to the island of Molokai, and one of them was Joseph Damien, also known as Father Damien. And Father Damien's daily duties were loving the leopards and embracing the leopards, and he actually would touch them and he would hug them, and he spent most of the time trying to ease the pain of their wounds and this vicious eating skin disease, and, you know, care for their ulcers, and he would help bathe them. He built, while he was there, over 360 cottages. You got to think, they didn't even have houses. They were just thrown there and said, live, survive, you guys are dying, you're dead to us. So he went over there and he created these cottages. He built a church, and he built their grave, he dug their graves, and he built their coffins. Because inevitably they were all going to die at some point. There was no cure during this time. And if you were to go to the island of Molokai on that backside, there's no leopards now. It's a curable disease, but there is a church that he built. There's many of the remains of his colleges, and in front of that church is the grave of Father Damien. But if you were to ask one of the people that are there that are attending the church, and you would say, hey, is Father Damien's body here? They would say no. See, one morning after 11 years of loving the leopards and caring for the leopards and embracing them and taking care of them and speaking to them, he was preparing a bath for himself, and he was heating up some water, and as he took it from the boiling pot and he was pouring it into the tub, a handful of it spilled on his foot, and it instantly bubbled up and blistered, but he realized he didn't feel anything. So kind of out of the shock of the reality of what could be taking place, he quickly poured more water on his other foot, and it instantly blistered up and bubbled, but he didn't feel anything. Every morning when Father Damien would address the leopards for 11 years, he would address them and say, my fellow believers. But that morning, no one put 2 and 2 together. For the first time in 11 years, he looked at them and he addressed them and he said, my fellow leopards. See, Father Damien died loving them, and he had gotten leprosy that day, and within 4 short years, he died of leprosy. And, you know, the Belgian government said that this guy is a hero. He's a legend. of our faith. He's a legend of Belgium, and we want his body to come back to Belgium. We want to, canonize him and award him and celebrate him. And they actually have a holiday after Father Damien, and the leopards fought with them, and he said, please don't take his body. He became one of us. He died as one of us. He lived among us. Can we please keep his body? And they said no. They fought back and forth, and so they pleaded with him, said, at least let us cut off his arm. So literally they actually cut off Father Damien's right arm and sent the rest of the body on to Belgium. And so if you were to go there this day, not buried in his grave is his body, but his right arm and his right hand. You see, this colony, these leopards, they kept the very thing that touched them. They kept the very thing that reached out and touched them and embraced them and loved them. They held on. See, they were changed forever. Over 8,000 leopards were exiled to the island of Molokai. And during that entire time, one man touched them every day, loved them every day, believed in them every day, fed them every day, cared for them every day. And when your gospel changes your life and when you begin to feel the gospel, you can't help but touch people. You can't help but touch lives. You can't help but go beyond your comfort zone. You can't help but walk out of your room and get out of your front porch and go into your neighborhood. You can't help but not just sit in your car on your commute every day, but possibly maybe look to the right and to the left while you're driving and see someone in need and stop and touch them. That you won't just sit in a cubicle trying to live the American dream, while for most people it's an American nightmare and they're just waiting for someone to touch them.